here it is, the one we have all been waiting for, the Valerion VisionMaster MAX, the one that changed the game a year before it was even released. And can you think of any other home entertainment product that has done that? Spread your love. The Valerion VisionMaster MAX, I think, is built to be a high-end, luxury, reference quality, 4K triple laser smart projector. And it's maybe the first projector in its category to be all of those things. And calling it a game changer product seems like a very typical YouTuber thing to say, but it's very easy for me to explain. It was about this time last year. You would have seen me to be the first, I believe, to review the new to the market Valerion VisionMaster Pro 2, which at the time was the best DLP based 4K triple laser smart projector I had seen. And I've had the Pro 2 playing this week, and it's still an excellent projector with a hard image quality to beat. However, the real excitement at the time was for the promised Max model, where over 1,000 people backed it on Kickstarter, raising over $10 million. And I was a big part of the hype for the Max, because I appreciated how it was going to offer high-end projector technology, such as a professional quality all-glass lens, a dynamic iris, and a motorized lens shift system. So the shift of the more affordable smart projector to be more high-end, of course, is exciting. But it's taken longer for the Max to get here than was promised. So I've come into this review asking two questions. Firstly, was I right to hype it last year? And secondly, is it now worth its premium price tag when we look at what the competition has been doing? Because I think had Valerion released the Max last year, it would have been massively groundbreaking. But instead, they kind of announced to their competitors what they were going to be doing and essentially put a target for their competitors to try and better in the year they have had. So the situation now in 2025 is a little more confusing, because this is still a cutting edge projector, no doubt, but I have two other projectors here that match some of the specs and better some of the specs. Using brightness as an example, the Max has a claimed 3,500 ISO lumens of brightness, generated by its claimed cinema grade MCL39 triple laser light engine, shining through a 14-piece all glass lens. And this is all very impressive and is capable of being used with huge screens. And for some context, the first high-end projector I owned was a bulb-based Sony, and it cost £8,500, and it could produce 1,800 lumens of brightness, and that was considered to be very bright. So to get twice that level of brightness for half the money, in a chassis size about a quarter of that of the Sony, plus a lot more, that's kind of where we are with projection these days. It's so much more advanced than it was in like less than a 10-year period of like technology development. And that is why I get really quite excited by what we have here in these products, because I appreciate how far it has come. But as I mentioned, I have two other projectors here. One is the Anker X1 that also delivers 3,500 ISO lumens of brightness. And I also have here the new HDMI Horizon 20 Max that is said to deliver an insane 5,700 ISO lumens of brightness. I have been using brightness just as an example of how the competition has had to massively level up their offerings, because we wasn't seeing anything like this from these manufacturers even a year ago. And I think that is because of Valerion and because of the Max and how it changed the game. It changed the expectation. So I've come into this review very level-headed. But I already knew the Max was going to be great. It was going to deliver a great image. But the big question is it worth its premium price tag of £4,349, obviously in the UK, or just shy of $5,000 in the US? Because that is a serious chunk of smart projector money. No one can deny the Max is a very lovely looking projector with an exceptional industrial design. I mean, it's the best looking and most premium feeling built projector I have had here, with the exception of the Pro 2. And the way my video lights glimmer and dance across the lovely metal framework, that is super cool. And it's just super stylish. And Valerion have the best looking projector range out there. I think that is a fair comment. So that includes the Pro 2 as well. And looking at them side by side, I think I might prefer the grey finish of the Pro 2, even though the black is the more serious in a darkroom choice, of course. But is it nicer looking? You let me know what you think in the comments section. I definitely prefer to see all of the lens and not to have half of it covered up. And the Max lens has a lot more going on inside, and I assumed some of that would move as you use the lens zoom or maybe the lens shift feature. And I tried to capture it on camera, except nothing moves externally at all. And it's amazing to me how this projector can do all that it can with its mechanics, all being internal in such a small sized chassis. Round the back, I'm happy to see this many connections. 3 HDMI I think is great, as it can be one for audio, one for a games console, and one for a media player, potentially. And all of the other connections seem perfect to me, with nothing important missing. And there being gigabit Ethernet networking will please some. I also really like the remote control. It's very nicely designed and styled and partially illuminated, although I wish more of the buttons were illuminated. The small GAN-FET, I believe, power supply is a welcome change to the big laptop style bricks that many competitor projectors come with. The Max is running on Google TV, which means a very quick and easy setup that I did mostly from my phone. And it means full native support for your favorite streaming apps, so full fat 4K Netflix, Disney, Amazon, Apple TV, and more. In the main, the streaming experience and menu system is very responsive, and it doesn't suffer the lagging menus when streaming issue some other projectors still do. It's also fully featured for format support, including Dolby Vision, HDR10+, IMAX Enhanced, Dynamic Tone Mapping, Active 3D, and others, so happy days. Within the projector's menu, we see all of the usual ease of use auto setup options like auto screen detection, auto keystone, auto eye detection, and you might want to use that if you have young children, but I always turn all of these off and go old school and manually set things up. And I would have preferred to have a 6-point keystone correction and not just 4, but it's a minor niggle. It's important to know that you cannot use all of the auto setup features if you are using one of the big new features of the Max. It's 105% plus or minus vertical lens shift system. And for anyone who mounts their projector to the ceiling or uses a shelf sat higher up, this feature will likely be a game changer for you because it makes your screen alignment process much easier. But there is not a lens position memory feature here to change image ratios for 2:3:5:1 screen users. That would still be a manual process. There is an optical zoom system for making adjustments to the throw ratio without losing any picture quality like you would if you was using a digital cropping method. And the throw ratio is between 0.9, meaning larger screens from closer is possible, all the way up to 1.5 or even 2.0, with an available in the future change to the lens. And being able to change the lens system, I literally can unscrew this one and put a new lens on the Max, is, I think, a world's first technology. That is something, but it's very, very exciting to think about the promise of anamorphic lenses. That's very exciting, but no additional lenses were included with the review sample, so I cannot speak about this feature at the moment. But one new feature I can speak about is the anti-RBE or anti-rainbow effect technology, which you engage in the menu. And this could be a game changer for you if you are very susceptible to seeing rainbow effect in an image, but it does come with some penalty to the noise the projector makes. So this is the perfect time, I think, to do a fan noise test. And I will be playing Dolby Vision content at maximum brightness, and I recorded the sound of the projector with the same microphone I'm speaking into now, placed about 40 centimeters in front of it. I have to say the Max is very quiet for a projector with this level of brightness and image capability. So that is very impressive. Yes, you do hear the fan system kind of ramp itself up if you're watching sustained or consistent, very bright images. But even so, I felt like the fan noise was extremely impressive again for this brightness and capability of projector. But now let's listen to the difference in the sound the Max makes with the anti-RBE mode enabled. And this is just the fan noise again as a reminder. And now this is with the anti-RBE enabled. So I think it's clear that with this mode enabled, the Max seems to make like a slightly higher pitched frequency noise. And at first I did find it a little distracting, but I was sitting in a silent room all on my own. And I realized later that as soon as there was any other noise in the room, like any talking or certainly any sound from the built-in speakers or any type of audio system, I couldn't hear the fan noise and I definitely couldn't hear the difference. And I had that mode turned on all of the time. Another new and very important feature with the Max is a lens iris, which is a set of blades that close to reduce or open to allow more light through. And the blades have a coating to stop any stray light coming through. And that is a very nice touch, and this is the first manufacturer I've seen mention this. In the menu is a selectable 6-level fixed iris system. So the user has an extra level of control over their image balance between its overall brightness versus its black level. Very useful for different screen sizes, different ambient lighting conditions or preference, because a brighter image looks cleaner, clearer and crisper, but a better black level does look more deep and 3D. And ideally you want both, of course. And Valerion use several technologies in the Max to try and achieve this. There is a quick access to the brightest iris with Cinema 1 and the best black with Cinema 2 for doing a comparison, and I tested both. I think Cinema 2 is better suited to very critical viewing in very dark rooms. And Valerion are making a very big deal about the black level capability of the Max, and they actually say it's 36% darker and 100% more immersive, which is, fantastic marketing, but there is definitely something in that. Combined with another Valerion technology, what they call EBL, enhanced black level, to make what Valerion have trademarked called Noir Scene, which is a very cool name for, obviously, for black. It reminds me of, Kuro, the Pioneer Kuro, back in the day. We all remember that, don't we? And I know that the EBL technology works fantastic because I've already tested that in the Pro 2, and it's even better in the Max. And these combined systems give the Max a 50,000 to 1 viewing contrast ratio. But I don't think that number does any kind of justice to what you see personally, because this projector can produce a massively vivid and clear image with excellent blacks. But you do kind of have to choose what you want. Do you want the Max black level, or do you want like the Max clear, vivid, bright kind of image? Still with good blacks, but not quite the Max black. But I think maybe with a clever calibration and setup, you could probably get the best of, almost the best of both. Trying to sum up my thoughts about the Max's picture quality is difficult because, like I said, I came into this review very level-headed, but with sky-high expectations, because I've been looking at some very good competitor projectors recently. But I think probably the best compliment I can pay to the Max is that it inspired me to want to watch more. I didn't want to review it really, I just wanted more time to sit and enjoy it. And I was on Amazon looking for what 4K discs I could buy, purely because I just wanted to see more new things on the Max. And that is because it does make viewing TV, movies or anything, I think, a little bit more special. And that is because the image it produces is just that little bit more three-dimensional, a little bit more clear. It just kind of lets you through that giant window just that little bit better. I want to mention the screen I'm using because of course that affects things. And I'm using the W Pro Cinema Floor Rising 120-inch screen using their black crystal screen material. That is ambient light rejecting and boosts contrast by helping the black level. And really, this is a screen intended for projectors with a worse black level and contrast, so not really ideal for the Max. Do bear that in mind. But when used with the iris set in cinema mode 1, you get a very bright and very clear and very punchy image where movies like Pacific Rim look next level incredible, because the Max can do the HDR aspects of this movie real justice, because it can do the deeper shadows without crushing the blacks. And at the same time, the highlights are bright, but really well managed by the dynamic tone mapping. So this movie looks both crisp and very 3D and very rich and color saturated and just deep. And it's a real spectacle to sit and watch on a projector this good. However, flipping the script totally to Kill Bill and the heavy grain shot on film made to look old style doesn't really do the Max full justice for what it's capable of, but there are some heavy black scenes and black and white and a lot of pastel muted colours mixed with very vibrant ones, and this was all easy for the Max. I did feel more deeply immersed in the story and just immersed in what was going on the screen. And I think that is because the fast action was very clear and easy to watch with the movie motion compensation mode turned on. On most other projectors, I turn the motion compensation off because it's horrible for movies. But Valerion have got this nailed. But talking about more immersive, I tested some of the Queen's Gambit streamed from Netflix, and I loved how its muted and earthy colour palette made me feel a certain way emotionally. And you can see this all super clean, clear and crisp. In stark contrast, something like the Rings of Power on Amazon Prime looked equally good, but totally different. And I think the many elven horses riding towards the orcs was a great test for the anti-rainbow effect technology, as even though I don't see rainbow with my eyes, I'm not susceptible to it, sometimes my camera picks it up. But you can see there is none here at all, and you'll see none throughout these demo clips as this technology works wonders. Looking at different high contrast scenes from a 4K disc rip of the Dark Knight trilogy, and yes, I might have had the color temperature wrong here, so the image is a little warm. But the Max delivers these high contrast scenes with a good TV-like quality, with incredible clarity, shadow gradation, subtle details, and a clear difference between what is and isn't meant to be crushed in the blacks. The shadow gradation is very hard for me to capture on camera, the same as I saw it with my eyes, but I can say this is about as good as I've ever seen this movie look on any type of projection and most TVs over the years. And the better blacks from the Max, I think, stand out for a movie like this. And this is where you start to notice that extra bit of clarity and 3D-like effect to the image that I mentioned. Lone Survivor, again as a 4K disc rip, I remember watching this movie a lot on my old Sony projector. And yes, it was a Blu-ray, so only SDR, but it looked nothing like this. Colours and contrast on display here, the greens, the skin tones, the reds, the sheer amount of detail in the image, and just how easy it is to watch all of the fast action motion. This is reference quality stuff as I see it, as it's very good TV-like again, and shows how well the Valerion HDR10 tone mapping system works, as this movie looked sensational. I often use the Spider-Verse movies to test a projector because they are so colourful and colour diverse. And I remember seeing the second movie at the cinema and was very disappointed by the grey blacks and washed out colours. A commercial cinema should be better. But there is none of that here. The image was rich and very colour saturated, but not overblown at all. And the contrast between light and dark, white and extreme colour is epically good. There is no other words for it. And these movies were stunning to watch on the Max, again leaving me wanting for nothing more. Something totally different, both the original and new Top Gun movies both looked about as good as I have ever seen them, and I've seen Maverick multiple times on very expensive JVC projectors in the past. So take this comment with a pinch of salt. I don't remember them looking any better than this, maybe even not as good. So watching these two movies, or just some clips from them, it was very, very impressive stuff to see what the Max is really capable of. But what about SDR? And checking out the best YouTube channel in the land, aka this one, and checking out one of my recent factory tour videos, it looked, wow, I'm really proud of myself. That's all I can say for how good it looked. As did a bit of Darko Audio and some other channels that I watch all the time. I think they all look fantastic. But when I watched the favoured HDR demo videos on YouTube, they always look good, but they always look better on a display with a better contrast because the image looks more punchy, but really it's how you can see more of what's going on and less of a mushy image that shows the difference in the quality of the display. And the way the Max handles all the extreme colors and brightness and contrasts and shadows really was fantastic. And there is a Samsung demo video where it has a lot of clean lines drawn on a black background. So this was of course a great test for the Max and how good are its black levels. And it all looked fantastic to me. Some of the shots maybe showed some contrast limitation, but others looked really special. So you can call me very impressed overall by what I saw here. I wanted to test some sports, so football was a great example, to see how the Max could handle a different frame rates with and without motion compensation. And I can't show you much of this without triggering a copyright situation, but I found football to be very watchable with the movement compensation turned off, but I thought it looked quite a bit better with the compensation mode set to clear. I think I should also speak about the performance using the RS set in cinema mode too. So this is about taking the black level down to its absolute lowest. And again, I think this is intended for very darkroom critical viewing on a higher gain screen. And I could see an obvious difference in the black level with this mode enabled. And with movies like John Wick 4, there is a lot of dark scenes, and the Max looked black to me, with only the slightest bit of grey in the bars top and bottom, with the contrast set very high for like the maximum punch to the image. And with the black set like this, the image did look just that little bit more 3D. And that left me in two minds. Do I prefer cinema mode 1 or do I prefer 2? Like, it's a really tough call. And some of you can probably already tell I am no picture quality expert, but by eye, I think I was able to use all of the settings within the Max to get some pretty amazing looking images. But look, the Max is the kind of projector that feels like a finely tuned, well-oiled machine, where I'm sure if somebody really knows what they're doing, like in terms of picture setup and calibration, they would be able to squeeze the absolute maximum out of this. But that is definitely not me. Comparing the two projectors turned out to be quite tricky with just one screen, so I used the most scientific method of placing one on top of the other, viewing the same content on both, then using a cardboard box to block one then the other. And I had to do this really scientific test because I found it very difficult when watching both projectors individually to obviously see what are the key and clear differences. And that is because the Pro 2, as I said, it's a very good projector. It has a very balanced image across every area, like it's very, very good. So it's not like the Max is looking to fix any obvious negatives of the Pro 2. So it's not initially that obvious straight away, go, wow, this is miles better. It's not like that. It takes more extended viewing. But what I noticed was, and this was my kind of like my assumption, and this is what the testing proved, that the Max has a cleaner, clearer looking image that is more 3D. What I noticed about the Pro 2 is that the whole screen seems kind of sharp. So it looks really clear and really sharp, but the Max seems to have a slightly softer image. What you can then see, I think, is more of the depth of field of the lens that's being used. So more of a clear difference between like the in and out of focus areas. And that is what gives the image, probably with a greater contrast as well, like a greater sense of 3D and depth, rather than it all being sharp. Like you see the difference between what's sharp and what's not. That sounds like a really small thing, but I promise you it's not. And then the laser speckle difference, I think it's subtle. It's not obvious. It's subtle, but that helps with the Max looking clearer and the Pro 2 looking kind of like more, a little bit more mushy and a little bit more crunchy. And to try and show you some of this, hopefully without triggering the YouTube copyright, I played some Halo on Netflix with both projectors set with the exact same settings for contrast, brightness and colour. And both were using Valerion's EBL technology, so the projector is best managing the SDR image. But look at how different they look. And I think you can see not only the obvious colour temperature difference, but also what I mentioned about the Max having the clearer, cleaner, more 3D looking image. So then I changed the settings in the Pro 2 to try and by eye better match it to the Max. And I couldn't get it perfect, and I actually couldn't get the projectors perfectly aligned for playing the same content because one remote control controls both projectors. So that was a real challenge, but I think you can still easily see the Pro 2, it looks more flat, it looks more crunchy, it seems to be more saturated in the colors too for some reason, and I assume that is down to the brightness. Allows the Max to come through with more punch and more clarity because it can put through more brightness. And I think this test really showed to me how much difference there is between these projectors and that the Max is a clear step up. And I also think like the motion processing or the movie compensation mode or just the way the image moves on the Max, it seems slightly better to me than the Pro 2. Like just a little bit quicker, like you can see things a little bit easier. And I do wonder if it's the anti-RBE technology, but either way the Max was just a lot easier to watch on like fast action scenes when there's a lot of things moving around. So look, to summarize this comparison, the Pro 2 is a fantastic projector. When you watch it in isolation, it's really fantastic. And changing to the Max, as I say, the differences are not necessarily obviously, wow, they're so different. But when you watch it enough, and when you do a side-by-side comparison, you can see the Max is offering like that next level up, like that reference quality, that more 3D, that more special look that, like I said, it inspires you to want to watch more stuff. I had planned to dedicate a whole section of this review to the brand new Valerion Thunderbeat speaker package, but as the review is already super long, I'll keep it super brief. This is a 4.1.2 wireless speaker and subwoofer package that was made into a 5.1.2 with the extra center speaker. And it's a very simple, maybe too simple a system setup wise, but it sounded much better than I expected it to. Even with the center speaker sat on a makeshift stand, and that has been the big thing in front of the screen. And I can see the appeal of having a super slim subwoofer sat out of the way somewhere. I had it sat behind the screen, and that's cool because it hardly takes up any floor space. But this audio system needs a lot of time, so I'll have to cover this in the future. And I also have here, and you've been seeing it sat next to me, the Valerion Walnut tripod stand. And I specifically asked for this as I really like the look of its industrial design. The gimbal part of the stand I think looks really great and does lock down tight in a clever way to a clamp that screws into the underside of the Max, and then you can adjust the angle of the projector as you need it. Now some of this is not really necessary with the Max as it has the lens shift system, so this is probably a better stand for the Pro 2. However, again, I just liked it visually and how it kind of makes the Max look like a modern lamp rather than a typical high-end home cinema ugly box that has to hang from the ceiling. So I thought it's just a cool and different way to have a high-end projector in your home. I mean, you don't have to have it hanging from the ceiling. So concluding this very long review, I know this is missing a very important comparison with the two other projectors that I mentioned in this video. And I think in comparing to them, maybe I would find the negatives of the Max, because trying to critique it is really not very easy when it's achieving as much as I've ever seen before from this type of projector. How and more actually, it's difficult to critique. And that kind of comparison is a huge amount of work, extensive, and I just haven't had the time yet to do that. But I'm hoping to do it in the future, so please look out for it and forgive me for that at this stage. I think probably more important will be if you was inspired by my Pro 2 review and you backed the Max on Kickstarter. Yes, you've had to wait a very long time for it, but man, is it worth it for you guys. You are, what is the saying, laughing all the way to the bank, because you are getting an outstanding projector here for a really great price. And you know, I didn't let you down. You're going to be massively impressed and happy with your purchase. Probably a bigger decision will be for anybody who's looking to buy the Max now with its retail price, you know, over £4,000 in the UK and nearly $5,000 in the US. Of course, that is a lot of money. And that question or consideration for you might be more difficult because there are other less expensive products on the market that are offering similar specifications, sometimes a little bit more. But I always say to people, it's like the overall package. What kind of product are you looking for? But what has stood out to me about the Max is its combination of its brightness, still with its excellent black level contrast and slightly better, more 3D image. But it's also its usable enhanced motion modes and its anti-rainbow technology that makes it easier, I think, to watch. And the Valerion EBL and tone mapping technologies manage the image so well, allowing me to enjoy it that little bit more. And the luxury nature of its form factor is important too, but only you can decide if all of this is worth the premium to you. I think it would be to me. So I hope you've enjoyed this review. I hope you found it useful and helpful. And if you've made it this far, yes, I did have something smash me in the face this week and like damage all my nose, so I apologize for that. If you've enjoyed the video anyway, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel to see more.